So now, a number of things. First of all, what I'm calling for, the title of my book, okay, which is Free Women, Free Men. I'm calling for an end to the sex war, okay, in feminism. Okay. Women are well launched now. Okay, so this kind of this reflex, snide, put downs of men that are everywhere. This has got to stop. Right? Now I notice, wherever I go in the world, actually, that upper middle class career women are very unhappy. They're very unhappy, okay, even though they have achieved a certain status. What I'm saying is that feminists have to stop blaming men for their own unhappiness. The unhappiness is due, I believe, to huge systemic changes that women, for thousands of years, women had their own world. There was the world of women, and there was the world of men. And the sexes didn't have that much to do with each other, okay? This is a brand new experiment to have this new system where now women can be economically independent now. They're no longer dependent on a father or husband or brother, okay, for their sustenance, right? And they're working side by side with men in the workplace, right? This is an experiment. It's never happened before, right? And I was saying in the book that we may have to accept a certain amount of tension between the sexes in the workplace. Right? That if the feminist idea that if we can just suppress men enough, women will be happy. I say no, okay? I say, okay, it's on the basis of my own experience as a child in Italian-American immigrant community, okay, is that what women have lost is the old solidarity that they once had when they totally ruled the private sphere. The women's life all day long was with other women once, multi-generational, older women, okay, as well as the children, right? It was a huge tribal experience. And now what women are feeling is a sense of isolation and loneliness, disconnection, okay, from their old function. I'm not saying to go back. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying stop blaming men, all right? Like, for example, these marches that just happened, okay? The women were exhilarated. They were almost hysterical, okay? I don't think it had anything to do with feminism or anti-Trump or anything like that. I thought it was that women suddenly felt that surge of happiness again for being with other women, all right? You can actually see it in the Odyssey when Odysseus is washed up naked and alone. He's lost his ship, on the shores of Phaeacia, and he wakes to the sound of women's voices, laughing and singing and so on. It's the Princess Nausicaa going down to do the laundry on the shore, okay? And actually, that is exactly what was going on up until fairly recently, where women were all together. They did all their chores together. They did the laundry. They did the cooking. I can remember this from my childhood in Endicott, New York, upstate New York, among the immigrant Italian women. All four of my grandparents, plus my mother, were born in Italy. And so I actually had that experience, the experience that went on for thousands of years in the agrarian era. Well, women all together. In fact, my mother described as a small child in Italy how all the women would get together to do the laundry and go up the hill to Il Sorgo, which was a fountain cut out of the side of the mountain. Probably went back thousands of years to the Roman period and so on. She remembered the singing, the picnicking, et cetera, okay? So even though people were laboring physically in the agrarian era, there was a happiness, okay, a sense of identity. There was no quest for identity. Now, it's no place for an independent thinker, okay? If you were an independent thinker, you had no options as a woman except to become a nun. Okay, so I know I would have been a nun, okay, 100 years ago. All right, I know it, okay. And obviously, communities are intellectually repressive in their own way. Nevertheless, we're in a period now of quest for identity, tremendous pressures on young people to form their own identity separate from those old automatic tribal and community affiliations. So I think there's a tremendous, as a classroom teacher, of now, more than 40 years, I can see this, and it's really, there's a tremendous sense of psychological dislocation among young people, and they find many ways to try to achieve some sorts of identity. And part of it right now, of course, is social media, which is causing the total, entropy in terms of ability to reason, to read, to write, the old things. And so on. All right. Now, I'm also calling for an end to this insanity of excluding biology, okay, from gender studies. Now, how in the world did this happen, all right? How did women's studies and gender studies end up teaching about gender without any reference whatever to biology or to hormones, right? And right now, post-structuralism dominates gender studies everywhere. You know, I spent 6 months writing my dissection of Foucault, okay, what was that, 27 years ago. Now, assignment, hello, anyone who thinks that Foucault is somehow, you know, the master of the universe has clearly not read my exposure of him in Junk Bonds and Corporate Raiders, all right? I mean, the man was a fraud. I'm sorry, okay? Compared to Freud, okay? I mean, Freud is out and Foucault is in, all right? The post-structuralists, all right, you know, pose as leftists, okay? But what were they doing in the past few decades with this crazy parasitic growth of this administrator master class, okay, that has taken over the universities, right, at a period of obscene, okay, rise in tuition costs, student debt that's crippling families and so on. Where were these leftists, the great leftists, okay, on our college campuses, okay? Were they resisting the administrators, okay? Were they denouncing student debts, okay? Were they lamenting, you know, the plight of adjunct teachers and so on? No, they were all running to conferences, talking about Foucault with their stupid elitist jargon, okay? I mean, you think they thought that's leftism, okay? These post-structuralists are the worst mercenary careerists, okay, in this country, right? The leading post-structuralists, okay, and new historicists are retiring as multi-millionaires. And they pose as leftists, okay? It is a scandal. Forget Foucault, for heaven's sakes. I mean, it's absolutely absurd, okay? So we have to bring biology and authentic study of, you know, of medicine, of anthropology, of history, you know, back into gender studies. That's one thing I'm definitely calling for. Now, aside from these things, okay, there are a number. I'm on the warpath against, okay, the bureaucracy of the campuses. Okay, at Bennington College, my first job in the 1970s, we actually, in 1976, we had an uprising, okay, as faculty against the trustees and the administrators, the president of that college, and it was like huge, publicized. Nora Ephron went up there and wrote it up for, you know, for Esquire magazine and so on. And the faculties are totally castrated. What are they doing? The faculties have absolutely been marginalized in this country. They didn't utter a peep as this administrative masterclass took over. The administrators who are in league with federal mandates or federal authorities in Washington. I mean, we're living in an age of Stalinism right now. Okay, and again, the leftists have, you know, they talk a big talk. Okay, but they do nothing where it really matters. Okay, which is demand 50% reduction in the number of administrators. Okay, and also 75% reduction in their salaries. Okay, which often exceeds that of the faculty members. People should realize how many of the ills that I'm decrying about the suppression of speech and free thought on campus are coming from the administrators, okay, who are these social welfare do-gooders. Oscar Wilde, okay, was absolutely scathing about these humanitarians, these aggressive philanthropists who dominated the Victorian period. All right. At any rate, in terms of other things in the book, there's a reprint of what I consider an important piece of mine in Time magazine, where I called for the end of this outrageous age 21 law in the United States, where young people cannot buy a beer. Okay, this is do you know nowhere in the world except in very repressive regimes, right? Like the United Arab Emirates and so on. Is there anything like that? Okay. What exactly? What Mothers Against Drunk Driving, okay, they wandered into an area here that has been extremely destructive. When that rule was passed in 1984, okay, what did young people do, unable now to drink? Okay, they began taking the club drugs, of course, okay, ecstasy and ketamine and all this crap that they take into their bodies, right? And what's happened to the ability, of young people to go to a bar, learn how to drink in a sensible way in an adult context, be able to sit with the opposite sex? learn how to talk, how to flirt, discuss ideas, okay? It is absolutely a cruel law. No one has raised, I mean, you can buy marijuana in Colorado, right? And young people can't get a glass of beer, okay, when they arrive in college. Do you realize how outrageous that is? Now, why aren't you more outraged, okay? That has to end. All right. Now, what I'm saying in the book is that those women, the country women, okay, were more powerful, okay, than any feminist. Okay, they were physically powerful, literally, in that period before automatic washers and dryers. Everyone did laundry by hand. Okay, I can remember my grandmother washing on the back porch with a washboard. Okay, they were powerful like this. All right, and these women had big voices, okay, and big attitudes. All right? So, I mean, in fact, once when my father was teaching high school in the small farming town of Oxford, New York, we lived for a year in the upper floor of a farmhouse, and there was like a hilarious moment. My father was out with his brother. They were standing outside smoking a cigarette, and suddenly the farm woman yelled at them. Okay, a calf had escaped from the barn, and she said, "Stop her!" Okay, to my father and my uncle, and the calf thundered by. My father and my uncle just stepped backwards as it went by, and the farm woman chased the calf and came back carrying the calf. Right? And as she's passed she said, "Men." Okay. Those were the women. For thousands of years, country women had physical power and mental power, and they were the equals of men. In fact, it's no coincidence that the first states and territories to give women the right to vote were in the West. Okay, it was the pioneer areas. Okay, where it was obvious that women were the equals of men. Whereas right to the very end, the educated states, the states where the great universities were, like Pennsylvania, New York State, Massachusetts, and so on, refused to grant women the right to vote, not until the constitutional amendment was passed in 1920. It's because the differential between the upper middle class man and upper middle class woman, okay, in the late 19th century and early 20th century was very profound. Okay, a lady seemed to be a different entity, seemed to be far more emotional, tended to faint, tended to be rather delicate, etc. All right, so the idea of granting such women, however admirable, the right to vote, was not as easy as it was for the territories. You want me to? Okay, maybe. Okay, why don't we just move to the question period then? Because I love the question period, and I'm sure you would too.
Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, 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 bong, bing, bing, bong. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best.